Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the 13th of October, 2025. You're watching Morning Brew on Politics Social with me, Graham Hughes. How are you all doing this morning? We've got Martin Howard in the chat. We've got Paula. We have Sarah. We have Diz. We have Chris C. And we have Bad Fairy in there as well. We've got Gallifrey and Ren and Diz and Saz, Colin Baker. Hello. Hi, everyone. How are you all doing this morning? Well, it's a bit misty here. It's a bit foggy here in old Durham town. If you would like to join our beautiful friends in the beautiful chat, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button. But just don't be a bigot. That's the only rule. Hey, how about not being a bigot? How about that? Okay, yeah. If you are, I'm sure our mods will have words in that. You'll be muted and you'll be able to watch, but you won't be able to actually do anything about it. So best be civil, you know. Okay, so look, we've got some uncharacteristically good news for you today. Just before I came on air, the last 13 hostages that were being held by Hamas have now been handed over to the Red Cross in southern Gaza, and they are on their way back to Israel. That was breaking news 5 minutes before I started. So that's all 20. That's all 20 of the living hostages that have been held in Gaza now for just over 2 years, finally going home, which is a good news story. Whichever way you look at this, and no matter how you approach this particularly thorny subject. But I want to talk this morning about why now? Why now? Why did it take so long to get to this point? Why couldn't we have done this a year ago? Why couldn't we have done this 2 years ago? You know, it's okay to feel relieved that these 20 hostages are finally free, even if we can't ignore the 736 days of hell that led to this point. And, you know, like I said, this story is emotionally charged for all of us. And so for Israelis, for Palestinians, for anyone watching the horror unfold over the last 2 years, this is the culmination of a lot of factors, and I want to get into them now. And I just want to ask, that question: why did it take 2 years? Why did it take the deaths of tens of thousands of Palestinians and a complete regional meltdown for this deal to happen? And we've got the uncomfortable middle ground that we're kind of straddling at the moment, isn't it? Today, it's possible to hate Trump and still analyze what happened factually. And this isn't about credit necessarily. It's about timing, power, and political calculation. And so let's talk about what's happened this morning. The final 20 hostages have been released. Celebrations in Tel Aviv's Hostage Square last night. Massive crowds, chants, signs thanking Trump and booing Netanyahu. And we might come back to that, I think. Trump's team, which included Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff, and also Ivanka Trump, his daughter, Ivanka. They attended the Tel Aviv gathering and addressed the crowd. And the Israeli public are largely relieved and emotional, as you can expect. But it was interesting that Netanyahu got booed. So Steve Witkoff was making a speech last night, and every time he mentioned Netanyahu, the crowd booed. And these are the families of the hostages that have been held. At the same time, Palestinians are mourning what they see as an unjust peace, a ceasefire that comes too late and after the spilling of far too much blood. Just gonna light myself up a little bit there. So the big question I want to discuss this morning is Could this have happened sooner? And I'm going to put my cards on the table and say yes. However, historians always do this. Could the Vietnam War have ended earlier? Of course it could. What would have happened had Truman not dropped the nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? What might have happened? Would there have been a full-scale invasion, a ground invasion, a seaborne invasion, I guess, of Japan? How many lives would be lost? How many American troops would have died, etc.? There's always that what if. But let's have a look at the timeline of missed opportunities together. Okay, so first of all, late 2023, Biden made a visit to Israel. This was just 2 weeks after the October the 7th attacks, and he warned against overreaction, and he compared it to the post 9/11 rage that assumed most of America at the time, which led them to making some what he described as mistakes. I mean, that's putting it mildly. And in early 2024, there was the first fragile ceasefire attempt, and that saw over 130 hostages released. I think it was actually 130 hostages released, but then the deal collapsed. And then in mid 2024, Israel killed a guy called Yahya Sinwar, who was the architect, or seen as the architect, of the October the 7th attacks on Israel. And there's an argument that the war could have ended there. And then in late 2024, Biden's day after plan was drafted, but it wasn't implemented before Trump's return. Also, Biden was seen at the time as a lame duck, which he was. I mean, even before the election, he was a lame duck because he wasn't going to be standing for re-election. And then in January 2025, we had a ceasefire, and then Trump got in, and then the war reignited. And it's been pretty much raging nonstop to this point. So now in October 2025, the ceasefire looks like this one might actually stick, because if the 20 living hostages have been given back to Israel, it seems quite doubtful, although not out of the realms of possibility, that Israel can continue the bombardment of Gaza to the extent that it has to this point. A ceasefire, but at an absolutely catastrophic cost. SG, thank you very much for the £5 super chat, my friend. That's very kind of you. Let's find the super chat button. There you go. It was all about an aeroplane and a misjudgment to attack Qatar. Bribery works, children, especially in plain sight. I'm going to come to that. So yeah, the Trump factor, right? So some credit and context, I guess. So Trump is a chaos. He's an agent of chaos. He is a screaming asteroid barreling towards in unsuspecting countries around the world. And he prefers optics. ABC, always be campaigning. He prefers optics to policy. He runs things in brush strokes, right? So broad strokes even. He'll just say, yeah, I want this. And then he'll let other people worry about the details. That's a Farageist, Trumpist way of doing things. Like Farage said, let's do Brexit. And then he let other people worry about the details. And then when it fucked up, he got to say, well, actually, if you had implemented it right in the first place, it would have worked, without any indication of what he would have done differently. Kushner and Witkoff, Steve Witkoff, led this charge, leveraging ties to Qatar in particular. And Qatar's been very important in this whole process. And the Gulf. Trump has used his own style of coercion, photo op, diplomacy. Obviously, he brought Netanyahu to Washington 4 times this year, more than any other world leader, more than even his next door neighbor, Mark Carney in Canada. And Netanyahu was reportedly forced to call Qatar's prime minister to apologize at the White House for bombing Qatar that had given Trump a $400 million jet plane, almost a £500 million jet plane, just to have gold plated jet plane, if you can believe that. Absolutely hideous thing. But you see, here's the paradox, right? Trump's ego is what probably, accelerated what cautious diplomacy delayed. So that means that had Trump's ego not been in place, had maybe Kamala Harris been in power in the White House, we might not be seeing this right here, right now. But then there's the argument that if Kamala had got in January, she could have strong-armed Netanyahu, not through photo ops and forcing him to phone up the leader of Qatar and apologize, but by America saying we're not going to supply you with as much arms as we used to, even cutting that back a little bit would have really knackered the Israeli regime, because don't forget the Israeli regime is not particularly liked in the region and does need to keep a standing army, which is quite a large proportion of its population. Obviously, they still have national service over there that you start when you're 18, unless you've got a doctor's note or bone spurs, I guess, or you're very religious. If you're very religious, you're allowed to go into Parliament and the Knesset in Israel, and you're allowed to say that you want all these wars and you want all these fights and you want all these battles, but it won't be your kids fighting them because you're dead religious, you see. Yeah, the religious right in any country in the world, whether it's India, Israel, Indonesia, or Idaho, or Indiana, mate, do as I say, not as I do. That sort of sums it up. Is it David's birthday? David's birthday. Congratulations, David, on an extra lap, another lap around the sun, another orbit around the sun. Happy birthday, mate. This is the paradox here, isn't it? That it's difficult to say whether things would have been different under Harris, whether it was taken longer, or whether it would have been wrapped up by the end of January. We don't know. But I can say for certain that Trump's earlier months in office accelerated the suffering. You can't argue against that, really, because he removed the guardrails that Biden had put in place for Israel absolutely leveling cities in Gaza. He encouraged Israel's maximalist aims. Don't forget the video he put out of that weird AI video with the dancing jihadists. The bearded, big-boobed, dancing jihadists. I mean, the fucking what? I mean, I've never smoked crack, but I assume that's what you have a dream of when you do. But the idea of turning Gaza into some kind of luxury resort with gambling and dancing, bearded ladies, I guess. I don't know. AI is as AI does. I think that there is a large component of the fact that things couldn't have gone better earlier because of Trump's action. So if we're giving credit now, we do have to say, but you did bomb Iran. But did bombing Iran accelerate this happening? Because Iran was one of Hamas's biggest backers, taking out Hezbollah, the audacious maneuver from the Israelis. That was under Biden, that wasn't under Trump, where they blew up hundreds of pages in what was quite blatantly a war crime. And they took out the Hezbollah, high command Hezbollah. They supported Hamas, the Houthis supported Hamas, and the Iranians supported Hamas. So all those three were taken out in various degrees, and therefore Hamas felt very, very isolated. And you've got to understand that I've traveled around the Middle East quite extensively. I've been to every country in the Middle East. I've spent time there. I spent 6 weeks in Kuwait. I spent a week in Saudi Arabia. In fact, I've been in and out of Saudi Arabia six times on my travels. And I spent a month in, more than a month in the United Arab Emirates. I spent about 3 weeks in Salalah in Oman. Hey, listen, I spoke to people. I spoke to people on the ground. I didn't just hang out with fellow immigrants or travelers. I spoke to people who live there, and it did surprise me, the negative, and also in Egypt as well. I spent a lot of time in Egypt. The negativity that people in the region felt towards Palestinians. They felt the same way about Palestinians as the gammon-faced gam-gams over here feel about asylum seekers in hotels, which came as a shock to me. But then it was explained to me that actually most people in that part of the world, in the Arabian Peninsula, are Sunni Muslim, and they're not Shiite Muslim, as the Hamas are supported by Hezbollah, by Houthis, by Iran, who are nominally Shiite Muslims, or at least the majority are. Iran is a patchwork of many different peoples. That's why it's not quite right to call everyone from Iran Persian. They might not be Persian. But the fact remains that we have in the Middle East a very awkward dynamic where you have, effectively, if you think about it, like Christians, you have Christians, Christian Catholics and Christian Protestants, and they don't necessarily get on. The tyranny of small differences, as Christopher Hitchens called it, when talking about the fact that the big schism between the people of Croatia and the people of Serbia, even though they spoke the same language, they didn't write the same language. Syrians used Cyrillic, and Croatians use the Latin alphabet. So yeah, a tyranny of small differences. So into this mix, into this volatile mix of this struggle that's been going on for over 1,000 years now. This kicked off in the years following the death of the Prophet Muhammad. So this has been a long time coming, and then you throw into the mix the homeland for Jewish people, that is Israel. You throw into the mix some crazy evangelical Christians who believe that in order to make the rapture happen, we need a war in the Middle East or something. I don't know. They believe some mad shit, and you have a very, very volatile situation. But one of the things that has, and again, like, it's not even as simple as saying, oh, well, there's the Sunni and there's the Shiite. Well, there's also other branches of Islam, such as the Sufi, the mystical sort of branch. But also within Saudi Arabia, there's the Wahhabist school of thought, which is quite aggressive and expansionist and imperialistic version of Islam. So even within let's call them Protestant group of, you've got your Presbyterians, you've got your Lutherans, you've got your Methodists, you've got your Seventh-day Adventists, you've got your Latter-day Saints, you've got your Jehovah's Witnesses. So even within these groups, and then you've got tribes as well on top of that. So you've got different tribes that don't get on within the same country in some respect, in some cases. And so what you end up is this really complex mosaic of ancient grudges and bitterness and suspicion about the other. And it's very easy to create someone who is the other. And I know, we can't be all bloody... We can't sit here as people from the UK or Europe or America, wherever you're watching this from, and think of ourselves as somehow like above all that, because we're absolutely not. We're absolutely not. We still have violence at football matches between people who look the same, speak the same, have the same accents, but, you support a different football team, so, there's nothing down for you. But yeah, I mean, it is an incredibly complex region of the world, as I guess all regions are. But I would say that in the end, the success that we've seen today with the release of these 20 hostages, which is happening in real time as we're broadcasting now, today, on the 13th of October 2025, in the end, this success might have actually been born of exhaustion, not of genius, but exhaustion on the side of Hamas, because they weren't getting the money in anymore that they were. They weren't getting the supplies. They've been brutally attacked night after night, day after day by the IDF, but also exhaustion on behalf of the Israelis. Don't forget, during this whole thing, Israel has turned itself into a pariah state for many countries around the world. And it's going to take a long time to mend the diplomatic breakages. Is that a good word? I don't know. I don't have an auto cue. Shoot me. I think it's going to take a long time to repair, to heal the wounds that have developed over the last 2 years. And you only need to look at the fact that countries like Britain and Canada and Australia and France have now recognized a Palestinian state, against the wishes of the United States of America, against the wishes of the Israeli government, which is a bit odd because I keep saying this: you can't have a two-state solution without, two states. But sometimes peace is achieved not because leaders become wise, but because they run out of ways to be stupid. They've exhausted all the stupid things they could possibly do. And the end of this all came together because of how it always does. Diplomacy. Jaw, not war. Sitting around and saying, okay, what's the plan? What's the plan for peace? Why can't we just go straight to that? Why do we have to have the prolonged period of suffering of people who don't deserve to suffer? People who had nothing to do with it. People just getting on with their lives. Children just trying to live. But yeah, this is also coupled with Netanyahu's, sorry, went out of focus there. Focus, Graham, focus. Netanyahu's fall from grace is something to be applauded, I feel. I think that Netanyahu is a war criminal. I also think that he's a domestic criminal. He's wanted on bribery charges, but he can't be held to account until he's not prime minister anymore, which is a stupid thing that humans do. They put someone on a pedestal, and that person turns out to be a criminal. And then they're like, oh, sorry, we can't put you on trial for your crimes until we take you off the pedestal. And the guy on the pedestal says, well, I quite like it here on this pedestal. So I'll tell you what, I'll just change the constitution, right? And rig all the future elections so I stay in charge forever. But like I said, Netanyahu was booed in Tel Aviv during Steve Witkoff's speech yesterday. Israelis see the hostages release as something that happened despite Netanyahu, not because of him. And his corruption trial is still ongoing, even though Trump has called publicly for it to be dropped, as he's done for his friend in Brazil. Bolsonaro. Yeah, Bolsonaro. No, Bolsonaro. That's what I say. Who is serving 27 years in jail for mounting an insurrection against the Parliament building in Brasilia. Sound familiar? But this thing that Trump does, where he goes, "Oh, you're my mate, you're my ally. I'm gonna do things to make sure you don't get into trouble." It sometimes backfires so spectacularly. It makes your head spin. Case in point, Trump loaned $20 billion to his friend Javier Milei, the leader of Argentina, a couple of weeks ago. And almost immediately, Javier Milei used that money to make it so that he could do a deal with the Chinese to sell all the soybeans that the Chinese don't want to buy off America anymore. China used to buy over half of America's soybean yield for the year, half of it. And now they're not buying a single bean. And Trump bails Millet out. And what does Millet do? The next day, he does a deal with the Chinese to supply them with the soybeans. Well done, Donny, dickhead. But yeah, and we need to talk as well about, like I said earlier, about the exhaustion in all this. The political fragility of Israel has come into this. Israel's diplomatic isolation has deepened. The far-right coalition partners of Netanyahu opposed this deal because they just want war without end. And for many Israelis, the war's human toll, the tens of thousands of Palestinians dead, it officially being called a genocide by the UN, is now an unbearable moral burden. Like, I one of the things I learned very early on in my travels around the world is you can't judge people by the actions of their government. And yes, any government in the world can probably get a few thousand people to turn up in the capital in support of the government. I think that's, easy. It doesn't even cost that much if you give each one of them a tenner. And they're all morons. It's easy to corral morons. But in Israel, the only thing that held many more liberal Israelis back was the fact that that Hamas was still holding hostages. Now Hamas is not holding any living hostages. I hope there's the remains of the 30 hostages that were killed over the last 2 years. I hope that they are all returned in a dignified and respectful way for burial. But yeah, the fact that Netanyahu spent 2 years trying to destroy Hamas, but the reality is he ended up destroying Israel's global reputation instead. And like I said, it's going to take a long time to repair this. It's going to take a very, very long time. Imagine no religion. We wouldn't be talking about this subject today, says Andrew Ray. Well, I don't know, Andrew. Here's my take on this, right? I'm a militant atheist. I think religion's nonsense. I find it frustrating and childish that people believe it. And yet, that's cards on the table, okay? That's how I feel on the inside. But I rarely say that, especially to people who are religious, because I feel like I should be a little bit respectful towards their beliefs, even if I believe their beliefs are nonsense. Because I want people who are religious to respect other people's beliefs. Because obviously, I'm just an atheist. I go one God further, as the old expression goes. A Christian doesn't believe in the gods of Hinduism or Buddhism or Zoroastrianism. They don't believe in the gods of the ancient Greeks or Romans or Egyptians. They don't believe in the gods of Southern Africa. They don't believe in the gods of the Incas. Or the gods of the Mayans. They don't believe in any of those. They think those gods are nonsense. They think they're just made up fairy stories made up by people. There's only one true God, and that's the real God. That's my God. Yeah. Okay, so I go one God further. I just say, okay, well, but the reason why I talk, I don't insult people who are religious, and I'm happy to have conversations with them about their beliefs without making them feel belittled or making them feel ridiculous for believing these things, which I genuinely think are ridiculous. I mean, I don't expect you to believe. I don't expect you to agree with me on that. But I have this thing where I like to take a step back and sort of try and imagine what it would be like to be an alien and arrive on this planet and have this shit explained to you, whether it's religions or whether it's landlords or whether it's Brexit or whatever it is. Like, explain it to me like I'm an idiot. I know nothing about this. I know no context of this at all, right? But here's the thing, Andrew. Even without religion, even with that being taken out of the equation, wars will still happen. Wars have happened that haven't been anything to do with religion. You could argue that World War II, what was that to do with religion? Was the invasion of Poland to do with religion? A Catholic country like Germany invading another Catholic country like Poland? I don't think so. Why did Russia or the USSR come in and start attacking the Nazis? It was about land. It was about land. They weren't happy with this Danzig corridor. They were like, no, piss off. So you're coming to attack us, we'll attack you. And also, I genuinely believe, and your mileage may vary on this, I genuinely believe that some people have to believe. I don't. I believe in science, and that does it for me. I mean, whatever thing I need to get me out of bed in the morning is delivered by science. It's delivered by the natural world and the fact that, oh my God, there's elements, there's atoms in my body. There are elements in my body that are billions of years old that were formed in the heart of a dying star. There's atoms in me. There's hydrogen atoms in my body right now that are 13.7 billion years old because they were created at the moment of the Big Bang. That'll do me. You know what I mean? Like all the bloody wonderful millions of different species of flora and fauna on this planet, the life in the sea, the life in the forest, the life in the jungles, the life in the desert, the life everywhere. Life finds a way. It's remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. That'll do me. I can just believe in that. And I also believe, and some of you might think this is naive, but I do believe in humanity. I genuinely do. I keep saying this. I think most people are good. It's my experience. I know that. Anecdote, the plural of anecdote isn't data, blah, blah, blah. But in my experience of living so far, 46 years, over 200 countries, experiences on all of the continents except for Antarctica. You have to go a long way to find a bad person who means you harm. Sadly, realistically, the people who mean you harm in your life are usually someone that you know. But I do feel like the loss of religion in this country has been a loss because there's been nothing to replace it with. And there's two factors here, one of which is community. The idea if you go to a big building, everyone in the village goes to a big building every Sunday morning, you get up, you go to church, and you sit there, the priest bores you to death, and then you have some tea and biscuits afterwards. You catch up on all the local village gossip, and then you go to the pub or something, or you go and play a game. You go and play cricket or Cran Green Bowls or something like that. That's the ideal of the world that we used to inhabit. But obviously, fewer people are religious now than ever before. Fewer people are going to church than ever before, and that means that those communities have broken down, and people don't know who their neighbours are, and that's led to atomization, which I don't like. And then that's been accelerated by COVID and people working from home, which I have no problem with. I work from home, my partner works from home, but at the same time, it's not as easy to make relationships with people that you work with when you only see them on the screen. Everyone who meets Kat in real life is like, you're very tall. Because I've only ever seen him on a screen before. And then when finally they get to meet her, they're like, I didn't think you were that tall. She's like, yep. But the other thing, so you got community, but the other thing is, I like I said, I think some people, a lot of people, perhaps the majority of people need to believe in something. And invariably, there'll be something daft. It'll be Brexit, or Farage, or Trump, or Boris Johnson. They have a gene that makes them want to believe in something. You got people running around at the moment believing that the world is flat. And they genuinely believe it. I mean, there's such arrogance and ignorance in that statement. It's off the charts. And then the denial of what you can see with your own eyes. The contortions that people have to go through. So yeah, I completely get, Andrew, that, if it wasn't for religion, yeah, we wouldn't be in this particular position that we're in now. But at the same time, say Jewish people, right? Say it wasn't a religion, say it was just a group of people, a race of people, even. And they believed that their ancestral home was what we can now call Israel. Mandatory Palestine, as it was before 1948. And that's difficult. That is difficult, because when you have a group of people who aren't necessarily held together by religion, you still have the same result. Like I said, the people in Croatia, they fought against the people in Serbia in the 90s, and they both had the same religion. They had the same fucking language. There's hardly any difference. You look at the struggles in the Middle East, and you might be a bit surprised to find out that these countries have had skirmishes against each other when they speak the same language and nominally hold this exactly the same branch of exactly the same religion. But people will find an excuse. People will always find an excuse. And what I think always seems to bring people back down to earth is this idea that we want to work together because it's profitable. And that's a real cynical way of seeing the world, but it's true that the nations that have been at peace, generally speaking, big ones who can afford to have wars now and again, but the small countries, they can't afford to have wars. Paraguay and Bolivia still haven't recovered from the war they fought in the 1930s, when each side was sponsored by a different oil company. This happened. And Paraguay took vast swathes of Bolivian land because they thought that there might be oil there. Dear reader, they found no oil there. Just, thousands of people died. Shell Oil were sponsoring one side, and BP was sponsoring the other. I don't know which exact companies. I don't want to cast aspersions on any particular kind of carbonaceous slime emporium manufacturers. I don't know which companies it was off the top of my head, but yeah, they still haven't recovered. They still haven't recovered. In South Korea, their economy in 1979 was about the same level as Afghanistan in 1979. South Korea's done really well, even though nominally it's still at war with North Korea, but there's not been no sort of active fighting at the scale that was seen in Afghanistan. Now, have a look at Afghanistan. Since 1979, the invasion by the Soviets that lasted for nearly 10 years, and they got kicked out, and then there was almost immediately a civil war, which lasted for another 10 years, which finally ended with the rise of the Taliban. And and then September 11th happened, and then the forces of the willing, or whatever we were called, invaded, and 20 years of occupation, and now the Taliban are back. Look at the economy; it's in tatters. People have nothing in these countries. War isn't good for commerce. It's good. It's good for the arms manufacturers, yeah, but that's why America likes making wars happen in other people's countries, because it makes a lot of money out of them. But the countries that are actually involved in these wars, the dozens of civil wars that raged in the 90s and into the early 2000s around West Africa and Central Africa, off the fucking charts. And those countries are still recovering. And it might take another generation for them to actually find their feet again, actually with the lack of really worthwhile support coming from the West. But yeah, I don't want to be a whataboutism about this, but there are so many examples of wars happening and battles happening and fights commencing against people who share the same religion, who share the same Messiah, share the same prophet, share the same God. Humans will find an excuse, I think, and yeah, I think that if we are going to move towards a post-religious settlement, a post-religious world, we need to find ways of replacing the things that religion gave people: hope, the idea there's something better to look forward to at the end of the day, and also just There are some people out there who are just bad people. They're just bad, and they would do horrible, horrible things. They genuinely would do horrible things, but they're held back from doing horrible things because of their belief. It makes horrible people do nice things. But then again, I mean, religion, the flip side of it, the dark side of it, it makes good people do some fucking horrific things. So, yeah, the discussions. We need to have discussions about what a post-religious world should look like, which is a bit different, I think, from the sort of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Dawkins and Hitchens and Sam Thingy and Daniel Dennett, Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett, who really pushed 20 years ago for people to stop being religious. Okay, great, but what do we build in its place? That's the question. What do we build in its place? Let's head back to Israel and Palestine. So let's talk about the shifting battlefield. The turning point, really, of all this was when Sinwar was assassinated by the Israelis. That fractured the Hamas leadership, and also the 12-day war with Iran that happened in the middle of this year. That crippled Iran's ability to bankroll or arm Hamas. And then, the Hamas's, at that point, the calculus flipped. The hostages became a liability, not leverage. And from a Palestinian perspective, Hamas agreed because it saw no other way to stop the bloodshed. Gaza is in ruin, diplomatically isolated and facing famine-level conditions. The group is militarily defeated, but politically still active. But because no clear post-war plan exists. And also the reality for Israel was that total victory proved impossible. Of course it did. 2 million people live in Gaza. What can you do with 2 million people in the glare of the modern world, the glare of the modern media, the modern internet, the social media? They realized that they couldn't win. Hamas realized they couldn't win. And I think this has come about more because of exhaustion rather than actual, in the same way that I think the end of World War I came about because of exhaustion after so many people had died. Blinken has said, we handed Trump a ceasefire with guns silenced, aid flowing, and hostages coming out. This is because Steve Blinken was actually involved before Trump was sworn in as president. This was the ceasefire that we had a week before Biden stepped down as president. And Trump took the opportunity to say, I've made a ceasefire. But Trump ignored it. He let the fighting continue. And this 20-point plan that we're looking at now that Trump is trumpeting, it's very, very similar to the 20-point plan that was there when Biden was in office. Pretty much the same plan, just rolled out months later. But there's a political motive behind this. Trump is facing headwinds at home. Farmageddon, his deployment of troops in Portland, who are hilariously being confronted by people in inflatable animal costumes. And the absolutely, horrific. We should do this. If we do an episode of Stateside tonight, I think we should sit there and watch a few clips from last week's what's it called when someone goes into the Senate or goes into the Congress to be grilled. Select committee. Yeah, they're not called select committees over there, but it's like a select committee. Grilling of Pam Bondi and also Kash Patel. It's got to be seen to be believed, but I don't think it's breaking through to the MAGA faithful. But the rest of us are seeing, the wheels are coming off. The wheels are coming off left, right, and centre. I can't see Kash Patel being in charge of the FBI much longer. But this is the way that Trump works. He uses someone until they're no longer useful to him, and then he disposes of them and pretends he never knew them. Trump needs a win. We've got the midterms in a year's time, and he timed this breakthrough kind of perfectly for optics. Again, it could be argued with some force that this could and should have happened months ago. And you contrast it with Biden's methods of diplomacy, which is like slow and methodical and rule-based, versus Trump's impulsive showmanship. In the end, both approaches failed for the people trapped in Gaza. Hopefully, there's going to be some respite to the horrors now. I mean, I was talking about it being a complex mosaic, right? There's fighting going on at the moment in Gaza City. It's not the Israelis, it's not the IDF. It's a group, it's a family group within Gaza City who are fighting with Hamas. Anyway, so yeah, the breakdown in numbers, it's 67,000 plus Palestinians have been killed in the last 2 years. There was 1,200 Israelis murdered on October the 7th. Gaza's infrastructure has been obliterated, and 1.5 million civilians have been displaced. And every missed diplomatic window up to this point had meant thousands more dead, and every political delay made eventual peace less meaningful. And this is an incredibly high cost for peace. But then you've got the illusion of Trump, the peacemaker. Thank you, President Trump. I say the billboards in Tel Aviv. But Trump may have ended the war, but he also greenlit some of its most brutal phases. He treated Gaza like a real estate project, not a humanitarian catastrophe. And his Gaza resort AI video, it was just like a grotesque encapsulation of his really quite grim worldview. And you could argue that Trump didn't really broker peace. He just stumbled over it, looking for a photo op. But the big question now for all of us is what happens next, So we've got the ceasefire that's happening. We've got the hostage for prisoner swap. We've got the technocratic interim Gaza administration, which still hasn't been agreed on. And then we have this idea of having the International Stability Force, likely involving Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar. Challenges include: will Netanyahu honor the ceasefire? Will Hamas? Will Trump use this as a justification for further US intervention? Can Gaza be rebuilt under an unelected technocratic authority under the guise of under the guidance of Tony Blair, who's come back from the political wilderness to turn up? Do you believe the ceasefire's got a hold? Because I think that it might for a little while. But this cycle of violence, I mean, there are some systemic issues going back generations that I don't think are ever going to be solved. Not at least not in my lifetime anyway. And you know what? It's possible to be relieved and furious. That's fine. It's fine to welcome peace, but then condemn how late it came, and to recognize Trump's accidental success without rewriting the whole moral ledger of Trump, which is so much in the red, and the red being blood. It's horrific. Don't forget, Trump is the man who took critical HIV medication away from pregnant women in Mozambique, meaning their children would be born with HIV. So yeah, I understand the conflict today. I don't want to give Trump any credit any more than anyone else does. And like I say, it doesn't balance out the shit that he's done. But I'm going to take the wins where we get wins, and this is a win. This is finally a win, a little glimmer of light in the darkness. And hopefully the ceasefire will hold. And hope is a dangerous thing, but sometimes it's all you've got. David, thank you so much for the 78 Hong Kongian dollars. It's not really about politics or religion alone. It's about being aligned with your tribe. It's a major factor that clouds people's objectivity, hard to deprogram from ingrained tribal elements. Yeah, David, you're absolutely true. You're absolutely true. Katz has said he's instructed the IDF to continue the mission, says Martin. That doesn't surprise me. And can we make jokes about 59 position? 59? Says Josh. I don't know if that works. Trump shouldn't get any credit for this, says Chris C. Well, this is the difficulty, isn't it? Because it's so hard to say whether this would have happened had Trump not strong-armed Netanyahu. It wasn't in Netanyahu's interest to end this war, to get the hostages back. He wanted war without end because he kept them out of jail. But I think the Israelis really, really monumentally fucked up and overstepped when they bombed Qatar. Don't forget, Qatar been buttering Trump up for a very long time. Don't forget the Saudis gave they gave Trump's offspring like $2 billion, didn't they? Gave Trump a £400 million jet. And he looks at Israel and he's like, what have you done for me lately? But yeah, speaking of fart, apparently he's decided that anyone anti-American, anti-capitalist, or Antifa is a potential what Bush Jr. would call a tourist. A tourist. Yes, a tourist. Tribalism isn't going away. It's a survival adaptation that we've had for thousands of years. Unfortunately. One day we might just see each other as humans instead of going to a region, a part of Birmingham and declaring that you can't see any white faces there. One day. I don't think it's going to be one day soon, but you never know. You never know. At my age, 59 is more like a marriage. I'm not sorry. Yeah, Colin. I might agree. I'm not insulting people of faith. I like the fact that I don't believe it doesn't mean that I don't think that I cast aspersions on people who do. That's just my personal. That's my personal belief. Or disbelief, I guess. I'm like, this is enough. This is enough. I don't need any more. You know what? I don't need more years. I completed my bucket list before I was 33, mate. I've done everything I wanted to do, and now I'm just sort of, I don't know, enjoying me weird extra bit of time that I get. I've got no intention of surviving my own death. I don't want to. I don't actually want that to be the case. And I say this to people who are, let's say, Christian. Do you want to survive your own death? Do you really want that to be the case? What if you got married and then your partner died and then you got married again? Who'd you get in heaven? Both of them? What if they don't like each other? There's so many complexities to it. I'm like, what are the things that give you pleasure in life? For me, it's travel, food, sex, going out, having a good time with friends, going to the pub, going to a bar. I mean, well, not a bar, nightclub. I mean, going to a gig. Are there going to be gigs in heaven? Is there going to be Glastonbury in heaven? I don't think so. Not from what I've been told. I mean, the whole time you got to spend prancing around on a cloud, playing a harp and going on about how great God is. I don't fancy doing that for 5 minutes. Never mind 5 billion years or 5 trillion years or 5 quadrillion years, however long eternity lasts. No one quite knows. I don't want it to be. I don't want people who I know and love to burn in hell for not picking the right God. I don't want that. I don't want any of that to be true. And that's just the way, I feel about things. It's funny though, because what I find funny is I feel like in many ways we've come full circle on this island, because I think that a lot of, the moon and the sun, one's a rock, the other's a gravity well that's constantly smashing hydrogen atoms together to make helium and releasing insane amounts of energy while it does so. So you've got a nuclear reaction and a rock. And we used to worship the nuclear reaction. We used to worship the rock. We used to give thanks to them. But here's the thing, right? Although they are indifferent to our, needs and wants and desires, now we've come to understand that actually, yeah, if there's anything that we should be worshipping, it probably is that rock and that nuclear reaction. Because if it wasn't for that rock and that nuclear reaction, we literally wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here. I don't think they care if we worship them or not, but it is. I feel like we've come a bit full circle on that, especially for all our solar panels that we're putting up. And if you ever get tidal power sorted out, the renewable tidal power, then that's the moon. It's the moon giving us that energy. And we've got the sun in the daytime, the moon in the nighttime. Thank you very much. And the moon acts as a shield. My wings are like a shield of steel. Name the TV show. And they're stopping us from getting battered by meteors and meteorites, I guess, and asteroids every verse end. With you on good people of faith, it's those who use it for hate and or profit that I have a huge problem with. Yeah, Colin, same. Absolutely same. But I will say that there are some people who their religion allows them to encourages them to live a good life, to love their neighbor, to welcome in refugees and people from other countries. And that informs that opinion in them. Good. That's a good thing. But the issue really is there's nothing good that you can do. You can still have that goodness and that compassion and that empathy without religion. You don't need religion to have that. But there are so many cases throughout history of good people who genuinely believe themselves to be doing the right thing, doing absolutely horrific things. Don't forget the attackers on 9/11. They thought they were doing the right thing. This is really hard to get your head around, but they genuinely thought they were in the right. They genuinely thought the 3,000 people that they slaughtered on that day were all going to go to some special VIP section of heaven because they died martyrs or something. I don't know. They thought they were helping. They thought they were doing a good thing. No one sees themselves as a baddie. Even Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and these gruesome old bastards like well, maybe not Murdoch. They think they're doing the right thing. They think they're helping. I think in Trump's weird little fucking imagination, he thinks he's helping. He's doing, he's doing good. I don't think he sits there in the morning going, how can I be evil today? He just is an evil person. Can't help it. Paula, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. That's very kind of you this Monday morning. If it wasn't for the moon, the Earth's axis would be too unstable for life to exist. Yeah? Stabilizes the Earth as well. Good point. Well made. We owe our life to the moon and the sun. And the Earth. And the Earth itself. Pachamama. The Earth goddess. That's what we need to talk about. And Lee Kong gets straight in there with Batfink. Yeah, Batfink. Come on, karate. Let's take him on. Breaking news. 2 prisoners aged 25 and 43 been charged with the murder of Ian Watkins. What a shame. What a shame that man is no longer with us. That monster. And we don't have to pay for his breakfast anymore. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the papers now, if you don't mind. We are an hour into the show, but that's okay. So I had scrolled because there was a picture of Ian Watkins here and the picture of Trump, and I didn't want that on my other screen while I was looking at you. I didn't want. Anyway, so here we have Diane Keaton. Keaton was a strange, surreal, and very complicated as her best role show. So. Diane Keaton wasn't her real name. Her real name is Annie Hall. As the movie is called Annie Hall. Now, she changed her name to Diane Keaton. Just like Michael Keaton changed his name to Michael Keaton. Why did Michael Keaton change his name to Michael Keaton? Well, there was already a Michael Douglas. He was a Michael Douglas. There was already a Michael Douglas, who is Michael Douglas, a sort of Kirk Douglas, who was registered as an actor in America, with equity or whatever it's called in America. He had to change his name. So he changed his name to be the same as Diane Keaton. Diane Keaton changed her name to be the same as Buster Keaton. Now, Buster Keaton that wasn't his real name. He was given the name Buster by Houdini. Yes, Houdini. The guy who got out of all the traps and the straitjackets and the premier illusionist of his time, and also debunker of mystical and magical bullshit. Who famously got punched in the stomach. Now, Houdini wasn't actually his real name either. He had a different name to that. So there you go. Houdini to Buster Keaton to Diane Keaton to Michael Keaton. None of those names are their real names. But there you go. All influenced each other in some way or form. Houdini influenced Buster. Buster influenced Diane. Diane influenced Michael. Michael influenced, I don't know, a generation of people to grow up wanting to be Batman. Which is more than I can say for George Clooney. Anyway, so back to my fake name inception. Donald Trump boards Air Force One. Piss off. Trump flies into Israel for release of hostages. US president expected to meet families, those held captive by Hamas, before heading historic peace summit with regional and world leaders. This is a peace summit with at least 20 world leaders who are going to be there, including our own Prime Minister Keir Starmer. President Macron of France will be in attendance, as will regional leaders. No, I don't need an advert for bingo. Fuck off. The people who aren't there, actually, interesting. There's going to be, right, at this peace summit, there's going to be no Israeli government people, so Netanyahu's not going to be there. There's going to be no Hamas people. They're going to have proxies who are going to be there instead, and there's going to be no Iranians, even though they were invited, but they didn't. They're not coming. King and Conqueror, Royal Charles saves world champs by delivering 300 Windsor Conkers. King Charles had to save World Conquer Championships by donating 300 of the seeds from his Windsor estate. Because we don't have Conkers anywhere else, I don't know. But they've actually put, if you look at this, they've actually put King Charles's face into the Conkers, which is like really fucked up. But there you go. And apparently Watkins was killed over cash. I don't know about that. I've not toured too many jails around the world, but I have been to San Pedro prison in La Paz, the capital of Bolivia. And at the time, they only had 2 guards who used to stand outside. And you could go up to the prison, and there were people who could speak English at the prison gate. And you could slip them a $20 note or whatever currency they have in Bolivia. What is it? The peso or something? Can't remember. Anyway, they slip them some money, and they will open the gates and give you a guided tour of the jail of which they are an inmate. And it was an eye-opener. It really was. San Pedro prison is quite a unique social experiment, I think. People buy their own cells. You start off and you're in the gymnasium, sleeping on the floor, and then you get a bit of money. You can buy a cell off another prisoner, or you can give them some money so you can stay in their cell. The old mafia dons have penthouse apartments in there. When I came in the courtyard, there was a 5-a-side football game going on, which isn't too untypical for a jail. But what was a bit untypical is the people who were playing were all children. They were the children of the prisoners, and the prisoners were sitting around or watching from the sidelines. And meanwhile, at the table at one end were 3 old mafia dons who were sitting there with little trophies to give to the kids who win the football match, the tournament that they were having. We then had a little bit of a walk around. We saw some of the facilities that they have there, and how it all works. The prisoners make their own food. They run the prison themselves. If they want to go out at the weekend, they could just bribe the 2 guards outside. As long as they came back the next day, it was all good. I don't think this is the situation anymore, but who knows? But then they showed us what they do to the paedophiles. Well, I mean, I don't mean they actually attacked a paedophile to show us. I mean, they showed us how can I put this delicately? They showed us. They gave us an inclination of what might happen to someone who is in there, not for drug dealing, which most of the people were in there for, or growing coca or whatever. Cocaine is a big thing in Bolivia. Reserved for people who had done terrible things to children. It was, let's just say it wasn't very pleasant, okay? It wasn't very pleasant. Don't know if it would be survivable, to be honest with you. But yeah, I was shown what they use. to carry that punishment out. Yeah, big grim. But yeah, so there you go. That's jail in Bolivia. I don't know if it's the same over here, but I just imagine that if you're on the not on communal exercise fucking wing, not on normal communal exercise, is that what nonce stands for? If you're on the nonce wing of a prison, I don't think there's much down for you. But yeah, apparently he was killed over cash. Johnny Cash, maybe. Anyway, so Daily Express, the Hamas set to hand over 48 hostages. No, 20 hostages, and then the remains of some hostages. I don't think they're going to hand over 48. Labour should increase farm tax threshold to 5 million. The farmer's plea. And then we've got revolutionary new MRI procedure will double healthcare service capacity for tests. Ultra-fast scan can boost dementia diagnosis rates. A breakthrough in scan times for dementia is set to boost diagnosis rates by doubling NHS capacity in the tests. That's really good. And then international rescue, I don't know. Then we've got Trump on the Telegraph here on the right. Sledging made me play better. So sledging is when you make fun and you diss the other cricketers. One of the most famous sledgers of all time. I think it was Shane Warne. I think it was Shane Warne who said this originally. It might have been one of the other. I'm sure it was an Australian cricketer. And obviously, you're there at the bat about to hit the ball, and you've got the opposition, right? Someone from the opposition, the opposing team, crouched down behind you, ready to catch the ball if you nick it off the side of your bat, and then you'll be caught and you'll be out. So obviously the wicket keeper has a duty, some might say, to try and put the batsman off, and the famous line was the wicketkeeper said to the batsman, "How come you're so fat?" To which the batsman replied, "Because every time I fucked your mum, she gave me a biscuit." Sorry, that's just Yo Mama genius. Come on, that is Yo. And even if you're not a big fan of Yo Mama jokes, it makes me laugh anyway. Should we get the squeaky tank out? Come on, squeaky tank. Come on. Off you. Come on. Let's. Apparently, someone once asked that question to Harold, the guy who plays Harold, Ian Thingy, who plays Harold in Neighbours at a Neighbours night in Melbourne. He gave the same response. Okay, so anyway, Chinese debt trap threat to Britain, fears rise resilience on Beijing. Oh, okay, rise. That's a clunky bit of sub fucking editing. That fears rise, resilience on Beijing will leave UK at risk of further meddling after spy scandal. Sorry to making Trump big there. I'll just scroll down so you don't have to see him so much. US attacks Labour minister as delusional over Gaza deal. The US ambassador to Israel has accused Labour of being delusional by claiming the UK played a key role in securing the ceasefire in Gaza. Okay. Reeves could mount one-off raid on wealth, suggests IFS. This is a story that was in one of the newspapers yesterday. 30 billion, the size of the hole in public finances that Rachel Reeves will have to fill in her budget on November 26. EU border checks could halt school trips. Another great Brexit news story there. I'm being sarcastic, obviously. Cambridge better with no thicko rugby boys. Dame Mary Beard has said the University of Cambridge is smarter without thicko rugby players. Jesus, just say it as it is, I guess. I dread my son's girlfriend coming to stay, says somebody. I don't care. Sex scandals fuel rise in prison staff sackings, and insider trading claims in Trump slump. So there you go. Moving on, we've got 15 everyday style sins and how to fix them by a leading fashion expert. As Trump flies in for historic Gaza summit, Hamas moves captives ready for release, hostages and world await day of destiny. And there's a picture of Claire Foy, who's an actress, privately educated, of course, because she gets to be an actress. You don't. Stealth tax hike in Reeves' budget breaks Labour manifesto pledge, which is against what another paper said yesterday about they could actually put in things without breaking the pledge. There you go. China's espionage is ramping up, Britain has been warned. Historic summit to agree Gaza peace deal as Israeli hostages set for freedom. Blair to join Trump and Starmer as he takes prominent role on board of peace. Yeah. The day I met Diane Keaton, who's passed away, sadly, at the age of 79. Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry, yes, it's true. What? China assured that Labour would progress super embassy. Hopes and this is to do. Sorry, the super embassy. For those you don't know, so China has put plans to build a big embassy in London, but they've not shared some of the parts of the embassy that they're building, which they're going to build in secrecy. And we don't know what they're building. We don't know what they're putting there. They could be putting a large nuclear reactor into the middle of London. We wouldn't fucking know. And there's a bit of there's a bit of give and take. Let's say, Jesus Christ. Hopes and prayers for hostages, and then why trigger warnings may just make you feel more intrigued. Trigger warning: this article may offend people who like trigger warnings. Okay. Do you know what, though? I appreciate trigger warnings. I really do. So after Charlie Kirk got killed, I did not go on social media for 2 or 3 weeks after that. I didn't go on TikTok. I didn't go on Instagram. I didn't go on Blue Sky. I didn't go on Threads because I did not want to see the footage of him dying. I did not want to watch that. So yeah, I think trigger warnings are fine. Like if someone says, this article contains graphic details of a crime, then I want to know that before I read the article. I want that, and because I have a very strong imagination, I have a very strong ability to create images in my mind, and if I read something that's absolutely horrific, and a very, very almost photorealistic image, in fact, moving image can, in some cases, can form in my mind, which I don't want necessarily. Because, I've got to put my mental health first. Thank you very much. So we'll go back to the papers over here. Royal Mail email crisis by 5 words will be the end of Andrew. We're in this together. I think the words were after the picture came out of Prince Andrew and Virginia Guthrie, who he alleged to have assaulted when she was just 17. He apparently emailed Epstein immediately saying, "We're in this together, mate," even though he denied that it was him in the picture. Lorraine, TV cuts break my heart, but I won't walk away from the show. And then moment of truth in Gaza, hope amid the chaos. Aid arrives with 20 Israeli hostages and 2,000 Palestinian prisoners set for handover, but fears that one wrong move will spell disaster. We are on a bit of a precipice here, and there is hope. There is always hope, but we will have to see. Head over to the Metro now, the metronome, for the day they feared would never come. Gaza hostages to be freed this morning, which they have been. And then we've got the Guardian over here, hostages set for freedom. And then we've got Gloucester over health risks of going to the nail bar revealed. Jesus. And they've got an obituary there for Diane Keaton. And we've also got toxic rhetoric blamed as charities face violence. This is charities who have been warned of growing racial abuse, intimidation, and threats of violence towards staff and beneficiaries amid increasingly toxic rhetoric around immigration and race by politicians and extremist activists. Now, we've got a bit of a problem actually, because the police have just started recording hate crime in a different way to what it used to. Sorry, I'm getting a cold. They're starting to record it when there's a bunch of hate crimes. I think they used to record each individual hate crime as a hate crime, and now they record like one incident as a hate crime. So it's an incident rather than an individual. So 7 people gang up on someone in a pub or something. It used to be that there used to be 7 hate crimes that were listed, and now there's only going to be 1, I think, or something like that. They've changed the methodology. They've made it better. However, it makes it very difficult to now compare the number of hate crimes 2 years ago with the number of hate crimes now. And it looks like there's only been a 2% increase, and the reality is there's probably been a 50 or even 100% increase in hate crimes because of the vile rhetoric of Refuck and Nigel Farage and Richard Tice and Zia Usif and all those motherfuckers. And then toxic rhetoric blamed, and you can see why. And then finally, we'll have the Financial Times here, a bit of common sense for a change. Dawn of the age of the mega battery, and Gen Z or Gen Z is taking a sharper turn to the right. We've discussed this before with Gen Z, the fact that the people who were trapped at home for a year and a half under COVID have been radicalized by the right, online, especially the toxic manosphere of gobshites, like shiny-headed gobshites like that. Gruesome. What's his name? The horrible man. Looks like fucking. Looks like the guy with the hooks. Looks like Meat Hook from Secrets of Monkey Island. Rogan. That's the one. Not Seth, Joe. Not Rogan Josh. He's an absolute fucking gobshite, and his alt comedy, an alternative to comedy pipeline is just it's just disgusting, and it's sucked in so many young men, unfortunately. Gaza return, Mideast peace underway. We've got Wall Street investment bank revenues set to top $9 billion as Trump effect bears fruit. Increase of 13% last year. Light regulatory touch fires optimism, takeovers and listings surge. Investment banking, the investment bankers are doing well at the apocalypse. So, someone's doing well out of the Trumpocalypse. At Wall Street's biggest lenders are expected to top $9 billion in the third quarter of the first time since 2023, as deal making finally shows signs of flourishing under the Trump administration. So they've got rid of all the guardrails. They've got rid of the things that stop these companies doing really horrible things. And security agencies boost teamwork with businesses to reinforce cyber defenses. The security services, including MI5, are stepping up work with some of Britain's largest companies as fears rise that the economy could be damaged by more targeted cyber attacks, which, it absolutely could. Briefing here, Greenpeace threatens to sue over seabed ownership. US stockpiles key metals. We talked about that yesterday. Afghans in border attack. Business proves resilient. IPO revival cheers Europe. Russian coal mines slump. XII world models in world models race, and Abidjan makes its name. Ivory Coast, burgeoning business capital, is on a rapid and vast drive to name or rename 15,000 streets as one of Africa's fastest growing economies moves to keep up with rapid urbanization. So there you go. All things going down in Abidjan, which isn't the capital of Côte d'Ivoire. The Côte d'Ivoire's capital is called Yamoussoukro. But that's not the big city. The big city is indeed Abidjan. Gonna go make breakfast, says Gallifrey, man. Egg and mushroom breakfast bowl today. Ooh, sounds nice. Take care and be kind. Oh, yes, absolutely. Correction, Diane Keaton was not the girl painted golden goal thing. No, she wasn't. Great result in World Cup qualifying. Norway 5-0 defeat of Israel. They shouldn't be playing football, let alone going to the World Cup. Yeah, Sarigon, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, if we're going to stop Russia taking part, but then again, they've handed the World Cup to Saudi Arabia. So it's not like FIFA really gives a fuck about, I don't know, human rights, human dignity, human wrongs. While Gen Z was isolating with COVID-19, Prince Andrew was isolating with Sarah, 15. Oh, very good, Oscar. Very good. Martin says Norway did well. Shouldn't be taking part in Eurovision either. Yeah, especially as they keep trying to cheat. The headline is misrepresenting me. I am chaos, but I have no hope. I've got hope, El. I do. I really do. I mean, this chat gives me hope. The fact that there's at least a few of us who think that the world could be a nice place for everyone. It doesn't have to be horrible. It's not a zero-sum game. Just think about the energy we get from wind turbines and solar and tidal. It's infinite. For the first time ever in the history of humanity, we've solved the issue of the perpetual motion machine. It's not really perpetual motion because it's powered by something, but we can make energy for fuck all now, for absolute fucking pennies. Spend $100 on a solar panel, you can run a house off it for 10 years, and that's it. That's your expenses. I mean, it is kind of crazy the way things have gone. But the fact that I spent less setting up the solar power system in my house in Panama. I spent less on that than we spend probably in a year on energy in this house. I mean, I know obviously we need heating here. We don't need heating over there, but still. The cost of 1 year's worth of energy that we're burning, fuel, the gas, and all that kind of shit. The cost of 1 year of that for us as one household can be met by the cost of having a solar panel set up, a few solar panels set up, solar controller, some batteries. It's cheap as chips now. It is so cheap. It's wonderful. Gallifreyan Rent, go to make breakfast. I've read that one, Gallifreyan. Don't even think Gallifreyan's Rent with us anymore. Graham, try being trans and having hope. It's all a front. My smile ain't real. I know, El. I know that it's different. We've got quite a few trans people who watch this show, and the things we've seen this year, I can absolutely understand why you are feeling bereft of hope right now. But don't forget that it is actually made some of the people who have been silent in the past about trans issues, about the war on trans people, actually stand up and defend the rights and the dignity of trans people. It's forced them to make a stand. Whereas before, God, it was so frustrating that, and Rachel talks about this a lot, that these people who we know and love and make, go on TV and make these statements about what's happening in the world and are full of love and empathy for the people who are going through shit in Gaza, in Ukraine, and in places around the world. And yet when it came to trans people, they were just silent. What Rachel calls the James O'Brien defense, or the James O'Brien tactic, when he says trans people aside, and then talks about being woke, trans issues aside, like they don't matter. Even James O'Brien this year did a phone in that was really affecting, actually, where for an hour he had trans people call in. This was after the Supreme Court judgment, and talk about their lives and how this has impacted on their lives. And that I was in tears. I was in tears listening to people's testimonies about the shit that they've had to put up with. And yeah, I'm just so sorry. I'm just so sorry that we live in this fucking timeline where the richest author in the world feels the urge, feels the need to demonize an entire group of people who have done nothing wrong. But yeah, sending love to Elle and all of our trans sisters and trans brothers. The world right now is not it's not great. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but we're looking at possible futures here. And whenever these Machiavellian forces of bigotry and hatred, fascism, whenever they overstep the mark, there's always a response. Don't forget the response to bloody 8 years of that dickhead fucking George W. Bush was 8 years of Obama, when finally it looked like we were heading towards some kind of, worldwide. And honestly, in 2009, I honestly thought we might achieve peace. We might have a year when there were no active wars in the world. A war is defined on Wikipedia as an armed conflict which leads to the deaths of over 10,000 people. I think that's the definition. And although still crime would happen and there'll be drug cartels and there'll be horrible things happening around the world, of course there'll still be. But just no one putting on a uniform and then walking into someone else's place and shooting all the kids in the head. That just wouldn't happen, at the behest of their government, at the behest of their military. I genuinely thought that it was possible. In 2009, the world was looking hopeful. And I think that the kickback against Trump, the kickback against Milei, we've already seen it in Brazil, the kickback against Bolsonaro. We've seen the kickback against Duterte. What's his name? What's his first name? Fucking hell. Duterte. Ricardo Duterte? No, it's not Ricardo. What the fuck is it? So I'm going to have to look this up now because it'll annoy me forever. I can't remember his bloody first name. Dirty Duterte. Rodrigo. I thought it was like Robert or something. He began with an R. Rodrigo Duterte. People turned on him. They handed him over to the International Criminal Court. See you later, dickheads. See you later. The problem is the voices who ally with trans individuals are often drowned out by the hate because hate sells papers and generates clicks and views. Yeah. That's weird. The instant Graham said silent, my PC sound muted. Yeah. Elle says it all falls on deaf ears. I hope that isn't the case, because I've seen in my conversations that I've had with people who aren't trans, not part of the trans community, the conversations I've had this year with people who in the past have not had any particular feelings one way or another on the treatment of trans people have had an awakening. And I think that people are now either, unfortunately, going the way of the transphobes, the TERFs, the germs, but you've also got people going the other way who are finally going, oh my God, hang on. If I'm against the mistreatment of any given minority, whether it's gay people, whether it's disabled people, whether it's Palestinians, whether it's Romani travelers, whether it's people in communities, Muslim communities, Jewish communities around the UK, if I'm going to be upset about bigotry targeted towards them, then I should really be upset about bigotry targeted towards trans people as well. Yeah, so Elle, I can see why. I can understand completely why you feel the way you do at the moment, but I'd like to offer a little bit of hope in that I do think more people are waking up from my experience. I hope I'm not wrong, but we'll see what happens. This case is going to the European Court of Human Rights. I think that the Supreme Court decision will be overturned because it's absolute fucking nonsense. And then we'll just have to see what happens. Have to see what happens. Liam says, as a straight white male, I feel downtrodden by society as it is myself. So I can only begin to imagine how people who are different to me are being discriminated against. It's disgusting and unfair. It is. Chris says the problem is the voices who ally with trans individuals are often drowned out by the hate. Oh, I've read that one. Kirsty says, in my experience, I've never had any trouble from ordinary people. It's the bloody law. Yeah, Kirsty. I'm wearing my trans lapel pin to show what a trans person is and that I'm not a monster. Yeah, I absolutely. And Paula says, as a disabled trans woman, I feel doubly got at. I'm not surprised, Paula. Again, the fact that there are people now, eventually, it's like with the fucking hostages being released. It's a bit late now, but at least it's happening. But yeah, I do think that whenever you have a situation where people overstep the mark, there is always a clapback, and I think that not just the government and the stupid Supreme Court over here, but also and look, the Supreme Court, they were just doing an interpretation of what the law was. There was a badly written law. It's up to the government to write that law better. Fucking do it. You can do it with a statutory instrument. The law's already on the books. Just change that part, clarify it, add a fucking glossary, add an appendix. That's all they need to do. But there's just no will there in Labour to do the right fucking thing. Everyone watch Katie Montgomery, says Diz. Yes, I recommend Katie. Katie's been on this channel a couple of times and she's great. Elle says, in the words of Depeche Mode, don't just stand there and shout, do something about it. I usually do. I've solved every problem in my life, but this was a deliberate attack and boxed us in, says Elle. Yeah, it was a deliberate attack. You're not wrong. And yeah, I just hope that the clapback on all this, because don't forget, do you remember what happened last summer when, not this summer that's just gone, but the one before, when J.K. Rowling went after Amani Khalif, the Algerian boxer, and that was just steeped in misogyny and racism, and just, the fact that she's like, no, she doesn't look traditionally feminine enough for my liking, so I'm going to make her life hell. It's just bullying, and I think a lot of people saw it at that point. And do you know what? Now, all that turfy lot, they don't really have a leg to stand on, because, so many of them are clucky as fuck, and if they want a world in which we go up to every woman who doesn't look conventionally attractive to the Western male gaze, that they can expect to be treated badly and when they go for a piss. There's a story earlier this year about two TERFs who had a fight in a fucking toilet in Florida because they were both accusing each other of being trans. Unbelievable. Phil said it on the video, the exact words they need to amend the existing rules. Yeah, it's not going to be hard. And there should be, we should be lobbying. I don't know if anyone is, but we really should be lobbying Labour to fucking do that, to get that sorted. Yeah, I think what's going to happen is, because the thing is, if Labour did that, then it wouldn't have to go through the European Court of Human Rights. I don't want it to go through the European Court of Human Rights, because when they come down with their judgment that this is a disgusting, it's taking away the rights of trans people. It's taking away people's rights and dignity. When that judgment comes down, the far right are going to use it as an excuse to do what they want to do, which is say to people, we need to leave the European Court of Human Rights or the Convention of Human Rights. And I don't want them to do that. So Labour needs to nip this in the bud, put in a statutory instrument, define what they mean in the Equalities Act of 2010, and include trans women in that. As simple as that. Yeah, I saw that fucking Penis Morgan having a go at Zach Polanski, he's just obsessing over trans people when he's like trying to talk about the environment, and he's trying to talk about the disparity between rich and poor and the billionaire class and all this kind of stuff. And all fucking penis wants to talk about is trans people. I thought Zach dealt with it very well, actually. Got a lot of time for Zach, as you know. Person impersonator. Don't let that happen without telling us in the chat. If someone can help, we'll do our best. Yeah, Sarah, if you do want to get in touch with us, Sarah, and you want to get in touch with me directly, you can. I'm always here. Paula, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Why has every athlete accused of hypergenderism been black? Because of racism. Pure and simple. Because white people be racist. And yeah, it's really, really grim. It's really, really grim. But like I say, every time these bozos overstep the mark, there is always a pushback, and I'm just hoping that some of this sticks. Yeah, the people who are transphobes, they don't have a leg to stand on. They really, really don't. Notice how our side doesn't use generic type language over judgments we don't like. Yes, because we're not scumbags. Zach is getting smeared just like early Corbyn days. Shows they are terrified of him. Well, I mean, all politicians on the left get smeared, don't they? Left, right, and centre. But yeah, Zia Yusuf was quick to point out on Question Time on Thursday that Zach once made money convincing women that he could make their boobs bigger through hypnosis. And it's like, well, that's not quite what happened, but it was more to do with, I think, I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for Zach if he, was peddling bullshit at the time. But first of all, he's not doing that now. But secondly, like, if you are giving people therapy to make themselves feel good about their chest, about their breasts, then now to make them feel like their boobs are great, they're big enough. If that's the way of doing it, then I'd rather people did that than necessarily went under the knife. I'm not dissing anyone who does go under the knife. I mean, obviously, people do, and that's their decision. But just generally speaking, it's a little bit of a less extreme position to get to for your gender affirming care. And don't forget, every woman who has had a boob job and every man who's had a chest reduction is having gender affirming care. Every man who has used that Rogaine, whatever it's called, the stuff they put on their heads to make the hair grow back, it's gender affirming care. It just is. Like, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's fine. If that's what you want to do to make yourself feel more feminine or feel more masculine, that's fine. But I would rather there was an exploration of other possibilities, non-invasive possibilities before going for that. Not that I have a problem with it. As I keep saying, your body's the one thing in your life that should be fucking yours. That no one else should have a fucking say over. Whether you're trans or whether you're pregnant or whether you want an abortion or whether you want to get tattoos all over your body. It's not up to the state to decide what you do with your body. It's up to you. It's your fucking body. As long as you're not hurting somebody else, going around stabbing people. What you do with your body and, how you enjoy your physicality, that is up to you. And no government here or abroad, anywhere on this planet, should have a fucking say over it. And yet, so many times we hear from the same free speech people, the sovereignty people, who want to tell women and trans women what they can do, what they're allowed, what is permissible. But yeah, I think that the smears against Zach, apart from the whole make your boobs bigger through his hypnosis thing, which is kind of silly. But aside from that, one of the newspapers or one of the columnists had a go in for having wonky teeth. And it's just like, oh my God, really? Really? That's what you're going with? The wonky teeth. Okay. But yeah. Question time and Fiona Bruce was just embarrassing, says Saragon. They quickly closed concerns about Russian money and reform and wanted to talk about this instead. Get Victoria Derbyshire to replace her. Couldn't agree more. Victoria Derbyshire does a much better job, even though Fiona Bruce and Victoria Derbyshire both, privately educated. Because I'm allowed to be on the TV. You're not. I'll be more concerned about Farage possibly taking Russian bungs than if Zach made a woman feel happy about herself. Well, that's how I feel about it, Sarah. There are so many men out there who make women feel like shit. And they do it every day. Little microaggressions, little disses, little things, that people say. Often men, sometimes women as well. That really make people feel shit about themselves. And so if people want to feel good about themselves and someone is prepared to give them the time and the focus and the energy to make them feel good about themselves, then I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. It's just sad that we're in this world in which we're told that nothing we ever do is good enough. We're drowning in images and videos of these beautiful people who, airbrushed, photoshopped. Now it's all AI, like to some weird, uncanny valley level of perfection. And the reality is, the vast majority of humans don't look like that. And we should just be like, oh, well, I look like this. It's fine. But when I hear about, there was an article on the BBC yesterday about a 28-year-old having facial surgery. And I'm just like, come on. An absolutely beautiful young woman who feels the need to have a facelift at the age of 28. I'm like, I wish and no diss to her. That's what she wants to do. And if it made her feel good about herself, it made her feel better about herself, if she liked what she saw in the mirror afterwards, then great, go with God. I just hate that I live in a society that sells skin darkening creams to women in the UK and sell the same companies sell skin lightening creams to women in Malaysia. Spinal Tap had the cucumber down the trousers. People will even have a go at you for rekindling your childhood, etc., and being childlike sometimes. Yeah. Elle said, I grew my breasts at 14 years old. They ain't that big. If we're big, I may have been made to remove them. That is, yeah, and that is it. Elle, I mean, the idea that you would be made to do something that you didn't want to do, like to your own body, whether that's, stopping you from having an abortion or making you have surgery that you don't want to have. Like, to placate who? To placate some version of the patriarchy that is just out there to, I don't know, humiliate people, make them feel shit about themselves, and then get loads of money out of them from trying to make themselves feel better. Diz says, men have conversations with my breasts. Hello, I'm up here. Person impersonator, we have to learn that the person inside it carries the beauty. Yeah, person impersonator. And I find this, like, I do genuinely think that people who are not conventionally attractive but are lovely, lovely people are attractive. Like, I find them attractive. And people who are horrible, horrible people, like disgusting, horrible people who may be conventionally attractive, blonde, blue-eyed, whatever, cheekbones, big tits, whatever the thing is, right? Find them absolutely minging. Find them absolutely horrible to look at. especially that Mar-a-Lago face that they have, surrounding the Trump lot. I just go, oh my God. And it's not the work that they've had done. It's not the Botox. It's not. It's their fucking inner self. It's the fact that these are horrible, disgusting, gruesome people inside. And I think it shines through. I really do. Or at least, goodness shines through. Evil leaks out, I guess. Morning, Pagan. I won't be joining the Polanski bandwagon. He will have my support if and when his parties prove to be more electorally successful. I mistrust populism. I've got a healthy mistrust of populism, mate. But also at the same time, I think it's needed on the left because the right are kicking our ass at the moment, and I think we need something where I hope that he can bring the Overton window towards the left. I hope he can do that in the same way that Farage brought the Overton window towards the right. There's a big discussion about it. One Angry Pagan. If you watch the Sunday Roast show yesterday with Alex Political X and me and two of the guys from Turn Left Media, Ben and Curtis. If you watch that, we talk about what Polanski can possibly pull off by doing what he's doing, and to quote Yoda, "Luminous beings are we, not this fleshy mass. The inner beauty shines bright." Yeah, I don't think he says fleshy mass, does he? Does he? Fleshy mass. I don't think he says that. Not this crude matter. He says, "Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter." Just to get the quote right there, off the top of my head. I don't know how anyone finds the Botox and collagen enhanced look attractive, says Colin. Well, I don't. But if someone looks in the mirror and likes what they see for the first time in perhaps years, okay, it's fine. It's fine. You might look at people and say, "What have you done? What have you done?" If it makes them happy, then it's not harming anyone. But the worry is that some people get addicted to it, and then it becomes a harm. In the same way that I don't have a problem with gambling, but people get addicted to it, and it becomes a harm. I don't have a problem with drugs. I don't have a problem with alcohol existing because it does exist. But I think that when someone has a problem with it, there needs to be a support system in place. And with plastic surgery, I think that if you've gone so far with plastic surgery, I think there should be a point where people can step in and say, I think you've had enough, like would happen in a bar situation if you were drinking too much. Whoopsie puppy, thanks Graham. That's all right. I'll let you off. I almost won a trip to go and watch Star Wars Episode 3 with George Lucas in America. And I didn't get this line right. This was the final question. And it was me and this other guy. And if I got this question right, I would have got through. I would have won. Because I found out what the tie-break question was afterwards. And I knew the tie-break question. Because I asked the floor manager what the tie-break question would have been. But the question I got wrong was, quote from Empire Strikes Back, "There ain't enough life on this blank to fill a Star Cruiser." There ain't enough life on this blank to fill a Star Cruiser. There you go. Please don't look it up. Just jump in the chat, see what you think the answer is to that. I got it wrong. And so I got the booby prize, which was, I got a ticket to the Star Wars Episode 3 premiere in Leicester Square. So, I mean, it was quite a booby prize with George Lucas and Hayden Christensen and Rick Baker and all that lot. Rick Baker? Rick Bergman? Can't remember. Get them mixed up. One of them Star Wars, the other one Star Trek. The Ricks. Rock. No, Vendetta. It wasn't Rock. And I think that I said Rock. Blankety Blank says L. Blasted Rock says Lee. No, I said Rock and it was not the right answer. I'm going to have to wrap up soon, but I'll be really intrigued. And please don't cheat. If anyone can get this one, there's not enough life on this blank to fill a Star Cruiser. I'm sure there's a few of you can imagine who says it, and where. But yeah, Empire Strikes Back. Finish it. I did watch it, Graham. I can't believe I missed it live. Mar-a-Lago face, Caroline Levitt, aka Bullshit Barbie. Yeah, she is. At least Madonna has claimed the 65 is the new 35 despite extensive work. Snowball. Nuns, you're so close. I think I said rock. And then I thought, oh, God, no, it's Snowball. But it wasn't. Can't Stop the Rock, says Elle. Philip has got it. Vendetta's correct. It is Han Solo, but Philip Axford has got it. Ice Cube. There's not enough life on this ice cube to fill a Star Cruiser. God damn it! Could have met George Lucas. Could have had a chat with him. Could have said, could have told him my ideas for redoing the prequels, making them better. He would have loved that. Pagan, our youngest, is well into Young Sheldon. It's coming to our household soon. Oh no! Colin says, ever seen Jocelyn Wildenstein? She's a somber tale against the Kim Kardashian look. Yeah. So it's not Snow Bollock. Planet, says Sarah. No, it's Ice Cube. It is Ice Cube. And it was on Hoth, and it was Han Solo on Hoth. Okay. After that little pop quiz there. Like, you can't get it right all the time. My greatest pop quiz moment was when we were doing a movie quiz, and the question was who dubbed the voice of Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady, and I knew the answer. That was up there with knowing Mad Max's surname. But there is a really cool question, right? Here's a question for you, which I got wrong. Which 1977 movie was Mark Hamill's Hollywood debut? Anybody know? 1977 movie, Mark Hamill's Hollywood debut. Of course, I put Star Wars, but Star Wars isn't the right answer. Does anybody know? Because this is fucking obscure. This is really obscure. If anyone knows it, I think someone's probably going to have to look it up online. He has a surname. Yes, Solo. Rockatansky. Yes, it's Rockatansky. Max Rockatansky. Russell says, I only saw the original Star Wars when it first came out in the cinema. Not seen it since or any of the sequels. Wow. Wow. The first one's brilliant. Marnie Nixon, says Colin Baker. Yeah, absolutely. Good on Marnie. Apparently, the Hills of Alive. The Hills of Alive. What's her name, man? Mary Poppins. She was a bit upset that she never got the Julie Andrews. A bit upset that she didn't get the role as Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady because she played her on the stage in Broadway. I think Broadway, and or maybe in the West End. I don't know. One of those places. She was on stage playing Eliza Doolittle, and she could sing. Audrey Hepburn couldn't sing. Well, she could actually. She sings in Breakfast at Tiffany's with a little ukulele thing. The Pickles End saying Corvette Summer, no. Hand Solo and Barebacker, says Hell. Get in there, you fairy oaf. I don't care what you smell. Backdoor her, good idea. Haruri says Batman. No, it wasn't Batman. Although I give you a clue. You're on the right track. Because he did do the voice for the Joker in Batman the Animated Series, which is one of the pinnacles of TV animation. I think it was a Shining Guy sci-fi movie that really got under my skin is Colossus. I've not seen that quiz night. Yeah, should we do another quiz night? I think we should. Yeah, it's something Stansky. Mark Hamill's first film was about a car. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. And okay, gotta go. Make a brew for Reagan Leach show later, all. Trickster, says Liam. No, I don't think anyone knows off the top of their heads because this is really, really obscure. Bill Cosby show. No, this is a movie debut. It was the voice of a character called Sean in the 1977 movie, which came out in February of 1977. Obviously, Star Wars came out on the 25th of May that year. It was called Wizards. It was a Ralph Bakshi animation. The guy who did the 1978 Lord of the Rings that never finished, and also Fritz the Cat, Ralph Bakshi. It was a Ralph Bakshi movie. He was a small role as a character called Sean in Wizards. So there you go. Audrey Hepburn singing Moon River is the only worthwhile thing about Breakfast at Tiffany's. I can't stand that film. Well, I was thinking about this, Colin, about taking old movies and using AI to sorry. Oh, getting alarms on my phone. Come on, wrap up, Graham. Using AI to fix them. And I think Breakfast at Tiffany's needs AI to fix it. We need to take who is it? Mickey Rooney, was it? Who played the that all needs cutting out. That all needs. In fact, I don't even think you need AI. I think you just need to cut that out. There's no point in it. It's just a fucking subplot that's really, really offensive. But what I was thinking is that there was an animated film that came out in 1983 called The Thief and the Cobbler. And it was like a 20-year passion project for this animator, this director who worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And he never got to finish it. The film was taken off him by the studio. They finished it themselves. They cobbled a version together. But it was really similar to Aladdin, which came out the same year. And therefore, it just got lost to the mists of time. But there's a version that uses the storyboards that the original animator put together as to show what would have happened had the director been able to fulfill their original vision. Using AI, you would be able to make those storyboards come to life and actually finish the film, The Thief and the Cobbler, with the voices, and do the voices as well. These are possibilities of AI to make, bring films back from the dead. Which might be a good thing, might be a terrible thing. Maybe they'll do a new version of Casablanca with a happy ending. Anyway, I think that Casablanca does have a happy ending. Let's say bittersweet. I think it's a fucking classic. But there you go. The Dan Buster's dog needs to be renamed, dubbed over. Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. That film, Wizards is a Journey and a Half. It's a very strange movie. Wizards, 1977. Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna. Does voice acting count as a debut? Yeah, it was a Hollywood film. Came out. It was released at cinemas. But yeah, voice acting is still acting. Okay, my friends, that's it. I'm gonna go. Go watch Vegan Elite. I'll be back tonight, 9:00, stateside. See you then. Until then, thanks very much for the super chats. Thanks very much for the company. Thanks for the lovely words in the chat there. Take care of yourselves and each other. Give us a like on the way out. Don't forget to give us a like. We like a like. And consider joining the channel. If you want to. You don't have to. No one's forcing you to. But you get your name in the end titles as soon as I finish updating it. And you also get access to the Politics Social Discord server, which is well recommended. Until next time. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.